Galatians 1:8. And I read and it says, But if we or any angel should preach any other gospel apart from this, let him be accursed. Do you know who the Antichrist is? Do you know what the Antichrist agenda is? It is simple. Preaching any other gospel apart from the gospel of Christ. I want to link that to Islam. Islam came 600 years after the early Christianity, the early church, after the coming of Christ, after everything. And what did Islam teach? I've been a Muslim before. I was a Muslim before, raised in a Muslim background, in a Muslim family. Islam rejects the divinity of God, the Trinity of God, and rejects Christ as the Son of God. It rejects the ability of God, who is all-knowing, all-seeing, omnipotent, and omnipresent. It rejects him. I want you to see this.
If somebody goes and searches you and they type in your name and they go to views, it's you and Muslims back and forth. Let's play one of them, Rob. Play the other one. Play this one here first.
Well, that was my first public debate.
Is this your first public debate? So this is your first public debate. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah.
A woman can be beaten according to the glorious Quran. Now, do you want to get into a long discussion as to what is the position of women in the Quran and the Bible? I mean, we can do that. The book of Revelation, chapter 14, verses 4 and 5, shows that women will not enter paradise.
He talks about Revelation 14. That doesn't work. Read the context. It's speaking of 144,000 of Israel who were specifically chosen for a task. After mentioning the 144,000, this is what you conveniently forgot. Revelation 7, verse 9, I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne in front of the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried out in a loud voice, Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. That's the context. Do not misquote my scripture.
So I mean, this is where a lot of the stuff out there for you. But what I want to do is, before we go in here, I just want to learn about you. I want to know your story. So walk me through how you go where you were at to now being able to sit down against any Muslim pretty much and have a strong debate with them. How did that happen?
By the way, this debate, I had just stopped bodybuilding. Just to give you a little background, I come from a family of bodybuilders. So in the 90s, I used to train. So when I see some of your handsome, muscular staff, I start getting envy. And, envy's a sin. But yeah, I was just looking at myself. Even though I stopped bodybuilding, I didn't stop eating as if I was a bodybuilder. But to give you a little background, I was born in Kuwait, 1972, came to Chicago in 1974. So pretty much I've been raised in America, a Chicagoan, don't know much about the Middle East. Though our parents are Christian, if you're from an Assyrian background, they'll either be typically part of the Assyrian Church of the East, or in the case if you come from Iran specifically, they'll either be Presbyterian, because we had a lot of missionaries that came to the Middle East and converted the Assyrians to, let's say, Presbyterianism. But historically, the church of the Assyrians is in the West called the Nestorian Church. Now, why do they call us Nestorians? It's not a compliment, and I don't want to boggle you down with the details, but there was a bishop in the 5th century named Bishop Nestorius who was accused of teaching that there are two persons in Christ, that he's a divine person, human person, and that's blasphemy. And so the Assyrians have been labeled Nestorian, but it's not a compliment. It's meant to ostracize the Assyrian church, because the Bible teaches and the church teaches Christ is one person. He's an eternal, uncreated, divine person who became flesh from the Holy Virgin. So to say he's two persons is blasphemy. So they were accused of holding to the two-person theory of Christ, which is not true. So that's my background. And I don't know if you come from that background. Typically, if you're from that background, you'll be baptized as an infant. But even Presbyterians baptize infants, but for a different reason. So not to bog you with the details, in the Assyrian church, water baptism is the means by which the Spirit comes on you, makes you one with Christ, so that you're already part of Christ's body. So he regenerates you. He makes you alive, unites you to Christ. Presbyterians believe that water baptism is the sign that makes you a member of the covenant community, the new covenant of Jesus Christ, but it doesn't regenerate you. It doesn't make you one with Christ. That's something you must do later on. So there are some differences. So I was baptized at Syrian Church of the East, but my parents never told me about Christianity. I didn't learn about Christianity from my parents. Never told me who Jesus was, what the Bible is. I remember going
to church.
Well, they would take me to church, but I didn't know what we're doing. Like once a week, maybe once every couple of weeks, Christmas. I had no idea, none whatsoever. But my introduction to Christianity came from a 9-year-old Assyrian boy named Raymond Malco from Lebanon. He preached to me the gospel of Jesus Christ.
In Chicago?
Yep, at 9. He was 9 years old.
How old were you?
6.5.
Oh, he's 9, you're 6.5.
Yes. His grandmother was a godly, saintly woman. She was from a Catholic background, but his uncles on his mother's side, they were taught Baptist theology. So if you're familiar with what they call the independent fundamental, see, I'm giving you too many denominations, but it is what it is. There are a lot of denominations. And the independent fundamental Baptist denomination believe that you have to go soul winning, win souls for Christ. So you got to go knock on doors and lead them into the sinner's prayer. So his uncles taught him that theology. So he would go soul winning. So he found this soul. And for the first couple of weeks, I just ignored him. I thought he was crazy. But then one day, he got my attention because he said, Jesus Christ. And I'm giving you the gist. Remember, I'm the 6.5, I'm 53. And it's kind of sad you guys are younger than me. That's scaring me. And better looking and healthier. Lord, I pray for that glorified body sooner than later. So he told me Jesus Christ is the Son of God. See, if I talk about the story, I get a little emotional. And he told me that he loved me so much he died for me. That rocked me at 6.5. To know someone would love me that much to die for me. So he taught me the sinner's prayer. The sinner's prayer is, you say, Lord Jesus, I'm a sinner, come into my heart. Now, being a kid, I thought I had to recite that prayer word for word because we take everything literally, right? And he told me do it at night, so I took him literally. I had to wait till night. So I was afraid I was going to forget the prayer, and I kept reciting it. And night came, and I forgot it. But I remember that night, and I remember that I was in tears. My mom was next to me, and I told her, I remember waking her up saying, can you tell me how to invite Jesus? She thought I was crazy. What are you talking about? But I remember crying out to him. And I said, Jesus, I don't know how to invite you in. But I want you in my life. So 6.5. He would do street evangelism. There are people from the neighborhood, Chicago, Foster, and Clark Street. There are people who are listening who are going to remember this. He actually would lead me, and he would preach, and we'd gather crowds, a 9-year-old, because it's shocking. A 9-year-old, and he'd preach fire and brimstone and hell. And I was just a sidekick. I didn't know anything. Now, you fast forward, he had to relocate, and I lost my elder brother because he was the one who held me accountable. Sadly, my teenage years, things happened, broken family. Dad left. I was very close to my uncle, and he died of cancer in I believe it was 1982. So he was closer to me than my father. So I just gave up on everything, and I started doing things I shouldn't have done. Teenage, you go into drinking and, things that we're not proud of. But I had a huge emptiness in my heart because I've always suffered with 2 things in my life. And these are symptoms of pride. If you actually break it down, symptoms of pride. But nonetheless, I suffered from low self-esteem and body dysmorphia, which is still 2 demons that I have to slay till this day. And because I had this low self-esteem and really, really just body shamed myself, I felt more depressed. So I thought the solution would be bodybuilding. Why? Because my older brother started bodybuilding. And if you know about bodybuilding, you probably have heard of Sergio Olivia.
Of course.
He was a Chicago cop, but he also had a gym.
He's got a son as well right now that competes. Incredible physique, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
His son makes
he was
his
known
father.
for one of the greatest poses of all time.
Yeah.
If you go to images, Sergio Olivia, his forearms, he does this pose.
right there.
The 4th picture. That one right there.
Jeez.
Yeah, look at that.
You should see his son. It makes his father look like nothing.
Can you pull up his son's picture as well? His son is, Vinny, you won't even believe it.
Look at his son.
That's his,
Look at that. That's his son to the right. Oh, my goodness.
oh my, damn. These guys are
He blows us.
Incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
Hasha.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
Crazy.
man.
So Chicago,
So I said, maybe, you know what? Let me try bodybuilding. Now, another thing is one of the biggest influences on my life wasn't a religious figure, it was Bruce Lee. I still love Bruce Lee. I just can't get over this guy. And when I hear people saying, oh, he was an actor, it's just, it gets me angry. What are you talking about, man? In a street fight, he'll gouge your eyes out, you know. Yeah. The myth of Bruce Lee. So I thought in my very sick mind, maybe I can get into kickboxing and bodybuilding and become the first Assyrian movie star. Hey, if Bruce Lee did it, Arnold Schwarzenegger did it, why not me? Well, I realized the more I worked out, the more miserable I became. So there was a time in which I peaked. I was like around 200. And I'm not trying to talk about, you know, I don't want people to think I'm, just to give you an idea what God is doing. He's allowing me to attain goals to see how empty I'll be. So at one time, I got to about 220 pounds of solid muscle, no fat on me, and I was miserable. I was depressed. And I realized, you know what? Maybe I should try God. Now, this is around maybe like I'm close to 18. I don't even know the year because I was born in 72, and I try to remember the exact year, but it's in the 90s. As I'm thinking about God, I used to be if you ever valet your car, you have valet parking. Well, in Chicago, there was a restaurant called Bub City. It was in a very shadier side of Chicago, Cabrini Green. So they had a parking lot, and I was the security guy, security dude, right? And they call him the term I'm looking for, the guy who gives you the ticket. I forgot the name for it. His name was Hal, and he kept saying, "Praise be to Almighty Allah." Now remember, although my family's from the Middle East, they never mentioned Islam once to me. So I have no idea what Islam is or who Muslims are. So he keeps saying Almighty Allah. Now, you know, we speak Assyrian, we say Allah.
Allah.
Or Allah.
Allah.
So he got me interested. So I said, can I ask you a question? How do you know this term? So he started talking about Minister Louis Farrakhan. I have no idea what this guy's talking about. Then he says, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, and then he mentions Master Farad Muhammad. Now I'm thinking it's the same Muhammad. Turns out he's a member of the Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam, who's, now the leader is still alive. Louis Farrakhan hasn't passed away. There he goes. One of the most powerful, charismatic speakers. This man will captivate you. And he does it from memory. He doesn't have notes in front of him. He'll quote the Bible Quran from memory. This man is amazing in his recall and his speech, so captivating. And he mentioned the Quran, so I asked, could you give me a copy? Well, I read the Quran and I was flabbergasted because here's a book that mentions the major prophets of the Bible and Jesus, but it gives a different spin on it. So I got really confused. So in the back of the book, you have like, you know, table of contents, not table, I'm sorry, index of names. So I went look for Jesus in every place that Jesus showed up in the Quran. And I believe the translation was Abdullah Yusuf Ali. At that time, it was the most popular Quran translation. Now it's obsolete. But in the 90s, this was the translation that Muslims would give out. And he's got copious notes, right, to indoctrinate you. Man, I ate it up. I was shocked to find Jesus in the Quran. And this is one thing that non-Muslims, when they encounter Islam, the shock effect. Because they think Muslims are the other side, they're all evil, they're terrorists. And then they find out that they have more in common with Christianity than even Judaism does. This is a fact. Islam is closer to Christianity than Judaism because Islam recognizes Jesus. It says he's the Messiah, born of the Virgin. In fact, the Quran says that the greatest woman Allah created is Mary. And she's the only woman mentioned by name in the entire Quran. Women aren't mentioned. So if we're looking
even
at
his mom, not even the prophet's mom.
No,
Yeah.
Muhammad's parents, you don't even know whose parents are. You don't even know his historical context. If you just go with the Quran, it doesn't even situate the Quran for you. You don't know what century is this. All you know it's in Arabic. But when was it sent down? You need external sources. Even when Muhammad was born, you need external sources because Muhammad is mentioned by name 4 times. But even then you can make a case that it's not really the name of a prophet, but it's a descriptive noun, meaning the praised one. Mm-hmm. And some people actually postulate that what you have in the Quran is actually Christian hymns that were then bastardized into Arabic, originally in Syriac. A lot of theories. Some of the theories are strong. So again, as I read the Quran, I got baffled. But here's where training your children in the way to go pays dividends. Because of that young boy teaching me the Christian faith, planting seeds in my heart, my reaction was to go back to the New Testament. I go, wait, let me read the New Testament. And I remember reading it, man, I fell in love with Jesus all over again. In fact, I missed him. I missed him. I'm not supposed to cry. I'm Jiru. You know that, right?
The warrior
Yeah,
showing
you're not
us all
supposed to cry. But Jesus makes even the toughest of men cry like babies because he's infinitely beautiful and we are infinitely less and filthy. But as I read the New Testament, I fell in love with him all over again. There's no one like Jesus. Even those who do not believe in religion, when they read, for example, the Sermon of the Mount, they're in awe of his message. They even realize this is not human. This is heavenly. The way he teaches about to treat your enemies, and this is something out of this world, and it is. It's not from this world. It's from a higher realm, heaven. I fell in love with him, but then I had a problem. What do I do with Muhammad? Because I was convinced Muhammad was a true prophet because he was sincere. They gave me a biography, because then I forgot to add the details. Then I discovered Malcolm X. I forgot to mention that. Because Malcolm X is a big figure in the Nation of Islam.
Farrakhan, yes.
Yep. He was the one who pretty much made the Nation of Islam, but then he realized that Elijah Muhammad, who was the man who claimed that Master Fard Muhammad sent him. So there was a man named Master Fard Muhammad, and he went to Elijah, whose name was Elijah Poole in Michigan, and he said, pretty much, I want to appoint you as a prophet to liberate my people. And this theology teaches that Allah is a black man. So it's not Islamic. You go to a predominant Muslim country that practices, you tell them Allah's a black man, your body's going to be over here, and your head will be over there on a trophy. So this is but I didn't know. So I started reading Malcolm X, and then Alex Haley, his autobiography by Alex Haley. I didn't understand a lot of the code terms because he kept saying them, T-H-E-M in the book. Then I realized it was an abbreviation for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But his story captivated me because supposedly on a trip to Mecca, he discovered true Islam. And I thought, man, if Islam could do for this guy, or if Islam could do for me what it did for this guy, maybe Islam is a solution. But that's when I went back to the New Testament. The Lord saved me. But I had read a sanitized biography on Muhammad that made him look very, very devout, sincere. And so I didn't know what to do with him. Because if he's sincere and he's willing to suffer for his claims, then obviously he's not lying. But what he says about Jesus contradicts what the New Testament says. How do I reconcile that? It took me maybe 2 years to finally, and I know it's not a politically correct message, but it is what it is. That's why Islam is not Christianity. Christianity is not Islam. We're not the same. We have differences. So Islam thinks that Christianity has been perverted, corrupted. The New Testament has been changed. We believe that there are many antichrists who will come into the world. I know Muslims will get offended, but it is what it is. Jesus in John 14:6 explicitly says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. He didn't say I'm one of many ways. I point you to the life, and I can bring you to the Father among many. He goes, no, I am the truth, the life. Now, even from an Islamic perspective, no prophet can say he's the truth, the life, because Islam recognizes those titles as belonging only to the God of Islam, which they believe is the God of Abraham. So for Jesus to say he's the truth, he just claimed to be more than a man. From an Islamic perspective. To say you're the life, you just claim to be more than a man. And he says, you want to get to the Father, you want to be with me, you want to dwell with me, you better come to me and accept me as I am. But the Jesus of the New Testament, who's the Christ of history, is not a Muslim prophet. His name is not Isa ibn Maryam. He did not announce the coming of Ahmed, because the Quran says in chapter 61, verse 6, that the good news of Jesus is that he announced the coming of a messenger after him named Ahmed. That's in 61 verse 6 of the Quran. You guys can see it. So if you ask the Muslim, what is the gospel of Christ? Oh, he predicted the coming of Muhammad. That's 61 verse 6. If you want to see it.
Rob, can you pull it up? 61 verse 6 in the Quran.
Yeah. There you go. And remember when Jesus, son of Mary, said, O children of Israel, I'm Allah, truly Allah's messenger to you, confirming the Torah which came before me, and giving good news of a messenger after me whose name will be Ahmed. That's the good news of Islam. He prepared you for Muhammad. Because Ahmed is nothing for Muhammad, right? That's what they tell you. So that's their good news. That's not the Jesus of history. The Jesus of history claims to be the very God in such a way that even the Quran acknowledges no man can claim the titles he claimed. When I said that one of the names of Allah is the truth, Al-Haq, and he is the life, and he's also the first and the last. Well, if you go to chapter 22, verse 6 to 7, There you're going to see the names of Allah pretty much plagiarized from what Jesus said prior to the Quran. You'd think, if I didn't tell you this is Allah speaking, you think that you're reading the Gospel of John, because what is said about God here, the Allah of Islam, is exactly parroted from what Jesus says in the Gospel of John, which comes 600 years earlier. Here, you'll see it. So chapter 22, verse 6 to 7 says, that is because Allah is the truth. Al-Haq, that's one of the names of Allah. And because he gives life to the dead. And because he is over all things competent. Now here's an interesting part in verse 7. And that the hour is coming, no doubt about it, that Allah will resurrect those in the grave. See, only Allah gives life and resurrects the dead, and he's the truth. Well, if I go to the Gospel of John chapter 5, Jesus said all those things, but he applied it to himself. If you open up John chapter 5, you're going to have to open up the entire chapter because we're going to look at verse 21. So now watch here. Now watch Jesus say what the Quran says of Allah, but he says it 600 years before Muhammad showed up. So who's plagiarizing whom? It's not Jesus plagiarizing Allah. Now watch here. If he goes to John 5, I'll open it up.
Verse 21.
Yeah, we're going to open up the entire chapter if you can. If you go to BibleGateway.com, you're going to find Bibles galore. You mean I'm moving faster than the great Rob? What happened, Rob, brother? See, you can't keep up with the Assyrians, especially if he's Jilu, you know? Now, if you open up John 5, just put John 5, it's going to open up. Now, remember what Allah is, it said of Allah, he's the truth, he gives life.
Yes.
And then the hour is coming where he will raise
Sounds
the dead.
familiar.
Hold on, watch here. John 5:21. Watch here. Well, let's go here. 21. Now watch.
Right in the middle.
For just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. So Father and Son both give life. But in 25, if you watch verse 25, verily, truly I tell you. Now, this translation, NIV, says a time. The little translation is, an hour is coming. If you read it, it's an hour, because NIV is more of a paraphrase. So some Bibles do not translate literally, because in translating literally, you lose meaning. So they have to paraphrase. So this is a paraphrase. In fact, we Assyrians can relate. If I say, Atma Brishuch, if you translate in English, you're going to say, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how it is with
Yeah.
languages. So sometimes you can't translate literally. You got to translate meaning. But literally it says, very truly I tell you, an hour is coming and has now come when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, not Allah. The Son of God, and those who hear will live. Now 28:29 says something amazing, because the Quran says, the hour is coming, have no doubt about it, well, Allah will raise them from their graves. But who does that according to our Bible? Do not be amazed at this, for a time is coming when all who are in their graves will hear his voice and come out. Whose voice? The Son of God. So if I were to compare what Jesus says of himself with what is said about Allah, clearly Jesus claimed to be God, because the things Jesus says is ascribed to the Islamic deity, not to a prophet. So a prophet cannot speak this way if Islam is true. So what did they tell you? Your Bible's corrupt. Another passage, John, you brought it up, John 14:6, right? We read that. I'm sorry. Notice there he says, I am the way and the truth, one of the names of Allah, and the life. So clearly the Jesus of history is not Isa. He did not announce coming Muhammad. So from a Christian perspective, as offensive as it may be, facts are facts. If we all believe the same thing, we'd be the same religion.
Hey guys, Vincent Oshana here. I recently released a new shirt for my faith-based line, Faith Over Fear. There's a cross on the front and Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 on the back. As Christians, we've never seen Jesus face to face, but we believe. That's what having true faith is. Trusting when we can't see. And if you walk by faith, you have absolutely nothing to fear. Go to vtmerch.com, pick up a shirt. We have hoodies. We even have a female line. Rock the shirt, rock it with purpose, and let the world know who you stand with. Peace and love.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.